喂，你今日飲咗未啊？
飲 orange juice？
青紅蘿蔔豬骨湯
Coffee or tea or me？
飲橙汁？不如試下飲 Coffee Bubble Tea 啦。
Welcome to another Coffee Bubble Tea episode. I'm your host, Colin, and today we have our normal hosts with us, Samson, Joyce, and Tiffany.
Hello。
我想問邊個唔 normal？
Oh, wow. So, today we have another great episode. Today we'll be talking about discovering our neighborhoods. So, yesterday, while I finished dinner, I went downstairs. It was a very nice, sunny day. The day was wrapping up, and I just decided to, go out into my neighborhood, as I usually do, and just take a quick walk for about half an hour to an hour, just to, enjoy the day as it wrapped up. And every now and then I usually do this just to really kind of get a sense of what's happening in my neighborhood, to see all the things that are happening. And I live near a school in the suburbs in Scarborough, so there's lots of interesting little things that happen in everyone's homes, like their gardens that they take care of very well, and just the park that's nearby. So it's a very enjoyable experience. Now, as I kind of walked through my neighborhood, I also got to thinking, what are the very memorable items that we usually have when we do go through our neighborhoods? When we were growing up, in the areas that we live in now, and what makes it so memorable to us? Is it the locations, the stores, the buildings around it, the people that are there? So what do you guys think? What were some of the memories that you guys took from in the neighborhoods that you grew up in or that you live in now?
I grew up in a few neighborhoods. Like after we moved from Hong Kong, we lived in Thornhill, Markham, then North York. And I'd say the memorable part of, my childhood growing up in this particular neighborhood, there was a playground. We were close to a ravine, and there was like a local public library that was just stacks of books every week. And my dad would pick up some books, bring them home, read them, bring them back. I think those are like the big highlights I think of when I think of that neighborhood in North York.
Interesting.
Yeah. For me, 我住喺 Scarborough， 即係好耐之前啦，咁所以我講 detail 啲都冇所謂啊。嗰陣時咧，即係 right on the corner of McNichol and Middlefield 咁樣嘅。咁咧好多故事啦，不過有樣嘢好特別啊，諗翻就係我哋望住 McNichol 啲power lines 啫。咁其實好近嘅啫嘛 ，but that sort of became a boundary, and the houses across from the power line, it's a total mystery to me. 咁即係 I would never go past that imaginary boundary. So
經典親啊？
唔係㗎，and it 又係另外一間學校啦，同埋即係叫做細個嘅時候就唔會向嗰邊踩單車㗎嘛。咁所有踩單車都係係啦，即係within the side streets and so on。咁所以係啦，有個 boundary 嘅，即係 sort of 咪係到 McCowan and Steeles 咁 that area that block 咁樣啦。And it's all on my bike. It's really fun. Yeah.
By yourself?
Well, we'll ride to each other's home and then yell and get people to come out. Or we'll 係啦，或者 we'll go in and play video games or yeah.
That's fun.
如果你話 grow up 我諗我會覺得香港，即係我以前喺我有記憶以嚟啊，喺何文田大嘅。如果大家知香港有個地方叫做窩打老道。
What?
窩打老道。
Waterloo Road.
Yeah, Waterloo Road. Oh yes. 係喎，佢譯翻做英文係啊。跟住咧， 佢有個地方咧就叫窩打老道山啦，咁咧我哋就住上面嘅咁咧嗰個咧其實我成日都覺得，因為如果大家識香港咧，應該熟何文田山多啲嘅。咁跟住咧，咁窩打老道山就係僻少少啦，即係有陣時搭的士咧，有啲的士司機會唔知喺邊咁樣，你要同佢講啊咁樣。咁跟住，但係其實又唔係，我又覺得可能我自己喺嗰度咧，但係我又唔覺得真係咁僻，我唔知點解啲人會唔知啦咁樣。咁嗰個 area 其實係係一條好斜嘅斜路，我記得以前咧，即係成日要行翻屋企啊，或者點樣咧，我覺得點解我爸阿媽想當年要揀到咁高去住嘅？即係我哋真係要由個山腳行翻上山頂咁樣啦。
幾多級啊？有冇數過？
佢有條樓梯嘅，有幾級啊？冇數過，但係我總之覺得好，即係到夏天真係覺得好辛苦。你一係行斜路，你一係就行樓梯，總之呢兩個都係辛苦啊咁樣啦。咁跟住即係佢又好得意喎，就咁一個細山頭咧。有啲人會唔會以為我住山卡拉嘅山頭啊？咁佢呢個即係所謂嘅山頭咧，其實佢真係有晒好多嘢。佢有一大一細嘅 park 啦，即係個大嘅 park 就會有嗰啲滑滑梯啊、千秋啊咁樣啦。跟住佢又有個 public library 啦，跟住咧又有兩間中學啦。間中學咧有一個中學咧就有個室內泳池啦。你哋即係有陣時佢可以 open 俾 public 咁樣啦。跟住又會有幾間好細嘅 store 啊，咁樣買即係臨審嘢啊、麵包鋪啊咁樣。即係其實而家諗翻起，覺得嗰陣時住喺嗰度咧，係點講咧？真係有晒，即係嗰個位係有晒你所有要需要嘅嘢啦，或者係都係一個嗰個 neighbourhood 都已經好細，但係已經有齊晒咧咁樣。咁跟住你再落少少，即係行翻出。即係落咗山之後行翻出街，其實嗰條窩打老道有好多嘢啦，跟住又會佢又駁住旺角啊，又駁住油麻地啊咁樣。其實即係除咗隔涉少少，即係你一係咧就搭的士啦，一係咧你係搭喺旺角搭小巴上去啦。如果唔係你行上去就行死你啦，行到新水新塘嘅時候，Other than that其實係一個幾好嘅地方。可惜就係我諗我前一兩集都有講過，可能 mention 過啦。我就係有一日。即係 I mean 有一次喺香港離開翻嚟加拿大讀書，跟住嗰個新聞翻去，我就已經唔係再住喺嗰度。咁所以其實係我都覺得係一個小遺憾啦。即係我 I didn't get to say goodbye to that place，which 我其實都好想每一次翻香港都好想翻去睇下，但係
數下幾多級啊？
數下幾多級哇！係啊，都睇下有冇機會可以翻去嗰個 neighbourhood 睇下。
It's such a well-rounded set of responses. I think neighborhoods as themselves, they may change over time, and the things that we may have experienced there may have changed now, but those memories that we have fostered into our brains when we were young, or whatever sort of relationship we had with those neighborhoods, they don't necessarily change. So it's so interesting to see whether it be like the libraries that we used, whether we were just biking in the neighborhoods with our friends to go play video games, or, going back to where we once grew up, and really kind of re-immersing ourselves in that age. It's such a interesting experience that these neighborhoods can have on us. Now that we're not necessarily living in the areas that we grew up in, the neighborhoods that you live in now, like how well do you guys know, or have you gone out to explore those different places that are within your neighborhoods? How well do you know them?
I've been in my neighborhood for about 6 years now. I live at the Distillery District, which is a pretty touristy area. I've seen it go through changes. Like in the past, when I used to look out from our balcony, I felt like we were at the corner of downtown. But, since the Pan Am Games, Canary District has opened up next to us, and suddenly, the traffic has just gotten so busy. And then the pandemic hit, and it was quiet, and it was so nice. We have Christmas markets, in the winter time. And when the pandemic hit, for once, we were like, we can have a Christmas holiday without worrying about lineups and honking cars and crazy traffic. So, there's a lot of pros and cons living there, but because it is so walkable, when I was on maternity leave for 18 months, we would spend our days just walking out and then deciding, do I want to go east or north or west, and there's just different things to encounter. You can easily get into the next neighborhood, find a coffee shop. Like there's so many playgrounds around to bring my daughter to. So I'd say, like I really feel like this past 6 years has really given me a chance to walk the neighborhood and to know it in that way.
Yeah. 你咁樣講咧，我突然間諗翻，因為我而家都住 condo 啦，咁即係喺香港都係住 condo 嘅時候咧，即係好多嘢同以前細個咧住喺一個 house 感覺好唔同，因為以前咧係冇辦法 get a bird's eye view of my neighborhood. There was no Google Map. 咁sort of everything, the locations and place of things are happening in my head, and they are sort of in relations to each other. 但係即係而家咧，即係我真係喺我住 condo 望落去睇到 bird's eye view 啦，咁即係 Google Map 更加添。咁咧所以我想講翻細個嗰度，yeah 係啦。咁嗰陣時踩單車就周圍去啦咁樣。咁而其實咁同埋細個就真係你住喺好近學校噶嘛，咁咧就其中一樣嘢咧，我會去嘗試 find out 就係 where do my classmates live 咁樣，係啦 ，especially people I have a crush on 咁樣嘅，咁樣咧就即係或者啲 close friends 啊又好啦咁樣，咁所以咧就好多嘢都係咁樣，跟住一路踩嘅時候咧都會成日 make a mental note。而家去到邊個屋企啦？咁樣跟住或者會 avoid 我唔中意嗰啲人嘅屋企，即係 you know in 小學你梗係有 enemies 噶啦，咁樣但係頭先咧，即係我哋錄音之前，你第一個問個問題咧，我即刻諗咧，其實係即係 what's one picture we have of our neighborhoods, right？ 其實我係突然間諗翻咧，即係頭先講 across McNichol 嗰度嘅，因為咧我哋學校突然間咧，即係間唔中 there are people who come into the class that's not from your neighborhood, right? Somehow they are accepted。咁樣咧就嚟咗個女仔啦，跟住咧，因為細個 it's easy to have a crush on people for me, right? So 跟住我發現即係好 mysterious 啊嘛 ，and then she was living outside of our district。咁樣咧，我就有次即係我 sort of 見到放學佢架車咧，即係佢我估係 parent 車佢咧，係向嗰個 direction 喎。跟住咧 it's in the direction where I can look across from McNichol。係啦，跟住咧有次咧我就即係 sort of summon my courage and I rode my bike， 即係要過 McNichol 過一條大馬路咧係 it's an adventure。So that was the first obstacle, and then going across an empty field under power lines, and then turning in, and then I was so lost. I felt this， 即係呢個係完全唔識嘅地方，跟住我又好驚蕩失路啦 ，because everything looks the same, and I have no bearing on anything at all。跟住所以好快我就 gave up and then 快啲揾條路翻嚟啦。係，因為諗翻尾咪好搞笑咯。
Yeah, for sure.
Did you get physical maps to look at as a kid?
Yeah, but not 係啦，即係好少會，即係唔會即係喺度 chart 噶嘛。
Make your own map.
Yeah, I never did that。
佢都話未跨過嗰個位，佢點會知道嗰度咧？
係啦，咁同埋即係附近嗰啲地方太熟啦，唔會睇 map 噶嘛。Yeah.
Sometimes that's the best way to figure out your neighborhood is really just going out to venture and kind of see things for firsthand. Really, obviously you're not going to like really dangerous areas, hopefully, but sometimes your neighborhood, sometimes it does have those things, and you just have to be careful, I think.
Yeah, 你話 danger 咁，即係我諗個 mental picture 可能而家成日啲人會覺得Scarborough 比較 dangerous， 但係即係細個可能即係 I don't know， 即係細個從來冇咁諗，亦都冇 parents 會話呢一頭唔好去嘅咁樣咯。
Yeah, that's true. What about you, Tiff?
即係我過嚟之後，我住咗好多唔同地方，但係我而家喺我而家呢個 neighbourhood 都住咗，好似都有6-7年。咁我覺得佢係轉變緊，佢每一日都轉變緊。但係咧，因為太快，咁咧即係我諗我講得我就住 North York Willowdale area， 咁大家應該都知嗰個 area 其實都幾繁忙。跟住所以咧，你就會覺得佢轉得太快嘅時候，其實你係覺得佢好似冇轉咯，即係覺得呢間鋪頭執咗。跟住我下個禮拜，跟住同一個位就開另外間鋪頭，即係嗰種快到咧，你係已經唔知道邊間鋪頭執咗，跟住突然間開間新鋪頭，你係會突然間即係經過時先話點解喺度唔同咗嘅咁樣，係揾冇咗啦咁樣咯。我上個月先食緊呢間鋪頭嘅外賣嘅咁樣嗰啲，係啊，咁即係佢真係 constantly 咁轉緊咯。咁我覺得係即係嗰種轉係其實亦都會開心見到changes 啊，或者係 development 啊咁樣，因為你會覺得你好似同個地區一齊進步緊咁樣。咁我諗都係好唔同嘅，即係同以前喺香港，但係就可能我住嗰個 area 即係唔算係啲咩新嘅好嘅地方，所以佢又唔會咁多 changes 啊。基本上係10年如一日啦咁樣。但係而家即係我諗都關 pandemic 事嘅，即係因為即係你唔同 shop 會 close down 啊，跟住真係有冇人再 take up 翻嗰個位咁，嗰種轉咧，其實你真係會覺得你見到時代變遷。
Yeah, that's so true. Change nowadays is so frequent, and sometimes when we are in our neighborhoods, we might just be walking by it because we need to get to work or go to, the places that we need to go to. And sometimes we don't really take the time to, slow down, appreciate those sorts of places in our neighborhoods. And by the time that we do notice that, something new is coming, it almost makes me think that, wow, maybe you should have noticed it a little bit more,
你哋細個會唔會咁做？即係有人搬嚟附近嘅時候咧，就同啲 friend 咧喺度企喺度，即係睇下佢咩人嚟啊？有冇細路仔啊？
冇嘅，你會㗎？係
啊，即係睇下佢係咩咯。咁梗係好好奇有冇，即係 maybe new 可能新同學啊咁樣嗰啲，同埋。因為同一條街可能有得一齊玩㗎嘛。
I think like what you're describing is a childhood I didn't have because I went to a school that wasn't in my neighborhood. And so like, maybe there were 2 other families who sent kids to the same school. But yeah, like我成日都好羨慕, wow, like these kids grow up in the same neighborhood, go to the same school, play with each other after school and on the weekends. Like it's really a childhood friendship that seems that you had that I kind of like wish I did.
It's interesting, yeah.
同埋我覺得呢個係香港同埋加拿大，因為加拿大就真係你住喺嗰個 neighbourhood，通常都去翻嗰個 neighbourhood 間學校，但係香港唔係噶嘛。即係我嗰陣時香港讀小學同中學嘅時候係喺九龍城啦，你會聽到啲同學咧係真係嚟自不同嘅地方，香港不同嘅地方，即係佢哋真係可能要 travel 1個鐘去搭地鐵啊、火車啊、巴士又好，點都好。但係呢度唔會啦，即係好似Sam咁講，呢度就係個 neighbourhood。咁我覺得就係好唔同啊！即係我以前都會喺度揾緊有冇同學係同我住附近咧，即係好似我頭先咁形容，我嗰度可能太山卡啦，冇嘅，係冇嘅，佢覺得我同我阿妹2個嘅啫。因為我哋以前就會，因為我妹細我幾年咧，但係咧我哋會約埋放學咯。都約埋放學，希望有個伴唔使咁慘。
Go around and just knock on the door and be like, "Do you go to my school?"
唔會咯，因為着校服噶嘛香港，咁你就會好明顯知道嗰個山頭有幾多個人係你間學校，同埋咧我間學校嘅校服係好明顯嘅，即係基本上咧着嗰間，即係有啲可能好 basic 咧，香港啲校服即係你可能差唔多色嗰啲咧，你就可能佢係咪同一間咧，定係佢隔離學校？我哋嗰間係好signature嘅。
哦，
係咩？
係如果大家好幾年前睇過楊千嬅同余文樂嗰套戲咧，我唔記得叫咩名，總之佢入邊有套校服咧就係粉紅色上衫灰色裙。哇！係啊，咁我哋間學校就係粉紅色上衫同灰色裙。
Oh, that's so pretty.
Not of the same
唔
opinion.
係呢個即係點講？呢個 combination 粉紅色配灰色裙係靚嘅，但係當你
日着
係咯，到而家所以咧我都唔會揀粉紅色嘅，我覺得係有啲
Too girly. I love pink. Actually, now that you're talking about like just being in different places, I think growing up in a suburb, like, you know, we would not just stay in that suburb. Like, I think we were always using the car to get to church that was maybe 15 minutes away. And, you know, earlier this week, I had a chance to revisit a public library, and I had the time to sit down and eat a bun outside it. And as I sat there, I realized, like I actually have a history to this library. It wasn't in my neighborhood, but when I was little, my aunt had a friend who lived in the condominium across the library, and she had a son who was about my age. So we would go swimming in their condo pool, and then we'd go to the library. And I remember like sitting in this big circular area and reading books. And I was like, I'm going to find this place. And of course, as an adult, you go back and you're like, you know, I'm saying like this is much smaller than than I remember. And then in my high school years, I actually volunteered at an English conversation circle. My aunt was running a program, and there were ESL learners. And as a, you know, English speaker, I would come and like help them and lead groups. And then when I was in graduate school, I would go to this library once in a while and just study and do work. And as I sat there on Monday, I was like, like, you know, little by little, sometimes these places can really become part of your history.
Lots of history. Yeah. Is there anything that you guys would like to see in your neighborhood that you think is missing right now?
A library.
There's no library near you?
The closest one would be the St. Lawrence Market Library, and that's closed down in the pandemic. So we had to walk all the way to Gerrard and Parliament just to renew our library cards.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can't... Oh, okay. I read...
唔可以 online 做嘅咩？
Oops.
唔知呢個問題嚟㗎，我唔知喎，其實。
Yeah.
好明顯我就係一個唔去 library 嘅人啦。
Well, I don't go anymore either because it's so far.
What's missing 啊？唐人超級市場啦，即係我而家住嗰度。Yeah.
Are you missing?
係啊，但係啱啱早幾集話買咗車啊嘛，咁所以而家又冇咁 urgent 啊呢樣嘢。Yeah.
I wish I had more Chinese food around me. Yeah, like really, like you have to go to Chinatown or like back up to North York or Markham.
我想講笑話，但係
講唔出。
你可以開街跟住煲個魚丸牛丸粥啊！
馳名牛丸粥。
我嗰個 neighbourhood， 我覺得可能因為我本身自己揸車，咁即係 walking distance 去唔到嘅咧，咁我揸可能5分鐘 maximum 15分鐘都一定去到我想要去即係做嘅嘢啦。所以我覺得我個 neighbourhood 已經算好好。係啊，即係嗰個 neighbourhood 即係我呢排先 discover 原來我附近後邊有一個 park 咧，係好多嘢行嘅喎。即係咧佢係有即係我成日咧之前係經過就咁經過嗰條街，但我永遠都唔知道嗰度有個 park。都 until 舊年我 friend 話：你知唔知嗰度有個 park 㗎？我真係唔知喎咁樣啦。咁我就即係上個月啦有一次咁啊行啦咁樣，先至發覺原來嗰度有個 park 咧，佢係有 baseball court 啦兩個 baseball court 啦。
我去過㗎。
跟住之後一個 tennis court 啦，跟住有 bike lanes 啦，跟住咁啊行一個細嘅water splash 係咪叫？即係嗰小朋友
splash pad
咁樣，即係佢哋即係跟住我發覺嗰個 area 原來有咁多嘢，但係我住喺嗰度6-7年。
I think it's common, like sometimes when you live in your neighborhood, and since we are so car dependent, like our society is so car dependent, we just drive to all the places we need to go to, and then it's like when you have guests come over. I think my friend may have come over once and was telling me that, oh, like I was just at this park nearby your house, and then I'd be like, oh, there's a park nearby. I'd be like completely clueless about like what kind of Tiff was just saying that. Oh, I didn't know about all these things in my neighborhood that I had someone else from outside tell me about it. So naturally, I think I felt a little embarrassed, but I was like, it's okay. I mean, your neighborhood's so big, and you can never really truly walk it fully, but I mean, it's always nice to kind of discover these little hidden gems, as I call it, that you really kind of can make your day sometimes, like even like a coffee shop or the beach nearby, anything that really, I guess, resonates with you. I think that's what you would, kind of call it your own space.
Yeah, 我諗到啊，如果我間公司喺嗰頭開個分店咧，我就可以行返工。
喂，調返轉咧，你搬去你公司嗰頭住，會唔會方便啲啊
？I can't help you with that. But... So we talked about a lot of different things, a lot of big picture items like shops and libraries, parks. But there's also other things that sometimes we just don't really notice because they just seem so common, like I'm thinking like the bike lanes in our neighborhoods, the wide sidewalks that are designed to be for pedestrian usage so that, more people can walk and it's more inviting that way. The local artworks and the color palettes that are in our neighborhoods, the landscaping, the plants, the trees, all these sorts of things, the benches, these are all designed to make it so that your neighborhood feels more vibrant. It's more inviting for you to even go out and, walk through your neighborhood. Because let's be honest, who really wants to go out into a neighborhood that's just all like concrete and asphalt and like very like hard like elements to look at, very dull and gray and all that, right? So, sometimes these are the kinds of things that when we are designing communities and neighborhoods that we put emphasis on that, no one really pays too much attention to. And maybe the attention isn't towards that, but it certainly adds to that aspect of a neighborhood that makes it truly unique and to its own.
Wow, thank you to all the urban planners out there.
係咯，我都想問，係咪真係有一定，即係每一個 neighborhood 係咪都會一定會有啲咁樣嘅 elements 嘅咧？即係咪一定係有，即係某個 percentage 一定要係有 park 有綠嘅綠色，跟住有嘅係咯。
Yeah, to kind of simplify it and not make it seem very technical. Whenever we are designing for new communities, there's definitely requirements to have parks, have landscaping, things that would really add the final touches to that community. So there are requirements in Ontario that you do have to put these things into your neighborhoods. And most builders don't want to do that because it's expensive for them, right? But it's definitely a requirement because it does add to that quality of life.
I find it so interesting that you call it a final touch. Like instead of designing a development around a park or around green space, it's just like where can we sprinkle some landscaping and trees?
呢度種得幾棵樹，嗰度種得幾棵樹。
我真係 SimCity mindset.
That's kind of what urban planning is. It's like playing SimCity, but at least that's how I would explain it to anyone that doesn't really understand it. Because sometimes I don't really understand what urban planning is either. But certainly, in certain communities, there are existing green spaces that we do build around instead of just like maybe creating like an artificial area. But we certainly do both.
Thank you. That's really insightful.
So, as we wrap up this podcast session, I'd like to thank you guys for sharing some of the thoughts that you had in your neighborhoods and what you enjoyed and what you think is missing. Hopefully in the near future you'll see some of those things being implemented, certainly they would add to the quality of life to the neighborhoods that you live in. Perhaps you've never stepped outside of your comfort zone, maybe to go outside of your home and look around what's in your neighborhood. It's summer. What are you waiting for? It's never too late. Go grab a coffee, bubble tea, or a drink, not non-alcoholic, of course, and go exploring. And maybe you'll find something in your neighborhood that you've never noticed before. Did you hear? McDonald's has their $1 summer drink days back.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So no excuse now, right? Each neighborhood has something different to offer and unique to its own. If you don't have anyone to go with, maybe try joining the City Teller program hosted by Across U Hub this month on Saturday, June 25th. Discover something new this summer. Thanks to all our listeners.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.